The condition of the English working class during the Industrial Revolution. From the privileged perspective of the modern world, it is hard to make the argument that the Industrial Revolution was not an emphatic success. We enjoy a population and standard of living that a person living in 1680 would not even understand. Industrialization broke the Malthusian trap. It ensures that we live in a world where no one goes hungry for lack of available food. Economic considerations are another matter, of course. We live to the age of 85 instead of 31, and near the entire population is literate to a high level. All of this would be impossible without industrialization. From a utilitarian standpoint, it would seem that any number of miseries in the past could justify an improvement to the standard of living of such a high degree. Early industrial workers were, of course, faced with many such miseries. Long, tedious hours of work, high population concentrations, and poor sanitation leading to disease, very low wages, and the degradation of traditional forms of work, turning skilled craftsmen into unskilled laborers. This begs the question, was industrialization good for the people that participated in it, or just for the lucky generations that came after? A prominent early critic of industrial living standards, Friedrich Engels, compiled a lengthy report titled The Condition of the Working Class in England, published 1845. This report details a wide variety of abuses and poor working conditions experienced by the English proletariat. Engels began by describing the way in which independent rural yeoman farmers and small craftsmen were forced, by drops in market prices due to competition from industry, to sell their land holdings and become wage laborers. Engels felt, regardless of whatever material gains came from this industry, that this loss of the English people's freedom was a great tragedy. A yeoman farmer, before industrialization, did not have a boss, and he did not have to follow any timetable but what he set for himself. He may have been unproductive by modern standards, but the majority of his time was his own, and he lived with dignity. However, Engels did not argue for a return to the past. He saw the amazing material gains in productivity that industrial capitalism had created. He argued that the only way for workers to return to freedom and dignity was to seize the factories and machines for themselves. After this revolution, a new era of human development could begin. Engels was, of course, one of the first communists, and would go on to pen the Communist Manifesto several years after Condition of the Working Class. Peter H. Lindert and Jeffrey G. Williamson, in their paper English Workers' Living Standards During the Industrial Revolution, A New Look, published 1983, disagrees with some of Engels' conclusions. Lindert and Williamson believe some of Engels' statistical methods were flawed, showing a decrease in life expectancy where the average was in fact trending slowly upwards. This information about a slow, steady upward trend in life expectancy is corroborated by data compiled in the Cambridge Economic History of Modern Britain. N.F.R. Crafts argues, in his paper Some Dimensions of the Quality of Life During the British Industrial Revolution, that looking at any one indicator to determine the English standard of life during the period of the Industrial Revolution is fairly problematic. He explores several ways in which living standards could be measured, such as average height, life expectancy, Human Development Index, and average wage. Crafts concludes that taken on average, the living standards have improved over the period of industrialization. He notes times of extreme unemployment and low wages, recessions, and also large regional disparities in living standards, but finds an average upward trend. All things being equal, a person living in 1880 was much better off statistically than a person living in 1780, a century before. Maxine, Berg, and Hudson, in their paper Rehabilitating the Industrial Revolution, make the case that industrialization was something very new in the human experience. It was not a simple continuation of past economic methods, but a true revolution. It is very hard to say how one could judge the morality of something so new. It is much simpler to point to the crimes of industrialization under communist dictatorships and judge. In the case of communism, someone at the top was intentionally making decisions to radically change society. 17th century England was not a totalitarian state. In fact, it was much farther from totalitarian than most states of the period. No one person chose to industrialize England. Some state intervention occurred, but industrialization largely happened on its own as a natural consequence of the capitalist economy. Could the conditions of the proletarians have been improved? Maybe. It is very easy to live in the 21st century with our advanced knowledge of human psychology and sociological theories and judge the poor policy decisions of the people of the 18th century. I do not think this is appropriate. People of the 18th century became the people of the 19th, 20th, and 21st century. We could have not learned from their mistakes if we had not experienced them in the first place. Was the Industrial Revolution worth it? For the majority of people, the answer was yes.